Hello, my name is John Durr, and today I'll be discussing culturally sensitive care for the Jewish client. First, just to clarify a couple of points in terminology, Judaism is the actual religion of the Jewish people. It is more than just a religion in that it has its own culture that is associated with the people. Jewish culture and religion originated in what is present-day Israel, and what can be traced back to the Hebrew people or descendants of Abraham. There are a number of distinctive denominations within Judaism. Most notably, in broad categories, is Orthodox, which follow strictly the laws and teachings of the Torah, without regards for the difference in time between which, time in which it was written and modern day. This includes most popularly most commonly the Hasidic Jewish peoples. Reformed or Reformation was kind of a more liberal movement that takes into consideration the fact that things change over time and that some of the writings in the Torah may not be applicable exactly as they are written. Conservative, which is kind of a counter to the Reformation, tries to take some of the more traditional practices and mingle them with modern American society. It is the most common denomination here in America, certainly. And finally, Reconstruction, which has a couple of different distinctions. It is the most recent denomination, and they believe that Judaism should be a continually evolving practice that keeps up with modern society. However, even with all of these broad distinctions, there are many sects within each of the categories. Every client is different. Regardless of what sect or practice they identify with, they may or may not adhere to different aspects of the Torah, or even of that sect in which they are involved. Just keep an open mind when assessing your patients, and I will try and familiarize you with some of the general ideas. The Jewish have a long tradition with healthcare. It is one of the primary ideas in the Jewish philosophy that the life and the preservation of is one of the highest causes. They've traditionally respected and revered physicians. They are kind of fundamental proponents of universal health care. I believe it's necessary for all the members in the society to have access to health care. In some cases, historically, they would require their doctors or physicians to offer their services at a discount to people of lower socioeconomic status. It is a big faux pas, or it is very frowned upon for any kind of healthcare worker to deny their service. It's view it basically as causing harm. Now, they have two different concepts as far as healing and curing. Going to a hospital or going to see a doctor is regarded as getting cured of whatever ails you, whatever physical ailments. However, they refer to healing separately as kind of more of the community and spiritual aspects of a person's well-being. There's the saying that it isn't always possible to cure, but healing is always possible. They have, in Jewish culture, there is a very strong idea that the integrity of the body of the being. The body itself is sacred. which means things like permanent tattoos, smoking, illicit drug use are all forbidden. Autopsies are considered desecration except for very rare and dire circumstances. Things like organ donation and blood transfusions are only permissible in certain circumstances because of Piyat Nefesh. I may have butchered that. Which is one of their very highest commands, most prominent teachings in the Torah, the obligation to preserve human life. It is basically says that if it comes down to saving someone's life or preventing someone from being killed, that you can ignore almost all of the other teachings. In one of my references, they had even said if somebody is starving and the only thing that you have on hand are cheeseburgers or pork sandwiches, then it is totally permissible to ignore the other teachings of the Torah in order to preserve that person's life and feed them a bacon cheeseburger. Now, regarding nursing considerations specifically for the Jewish or Hebrew client, there may be some nuances with communication. Generally speaking, and this may not be in more liberal cases, but generally speaking, same-sex caregivers are preferred or sometimes necessary. For example, Orthodox Jewish males are not allowed to make eye contact or touch or even handshake with females other than their wives. Further, females that are menstruating should not be touched by males during menstruation and 7 days afterwards. This could cause some strange care issues if you are not familiar with these things, but encounter them. Perhaps most commonly, or most widely known at least, are Jewish dietary restrictions, kashrut, or a set of laws regarding food and preparation as far as what can be consumed. There are animals that are regarded as entirely inedible, most widely known pigs and shellfish. And then some parts of the edible animals are still off limits. Meat and dairy should not be mixed in any meal. You can have things like grains and eggs and vegetables with meat, or you can have them with dairy, just not the meat and dairy together. Further, using any utensils to prepare one or consume one should not be mixed with those to use the other. Vegetarianism is fairly prominent amongst practicing Jews as well. When in doubt, there is the symbol on prepared foods there. It is the Circle K that means it is kosher friendly. Kosher is the term that's referred to, that's used to refer to meals that have been prepared in accordance with the kashrut. Regarding the death and dying of Jewish patients, they're firmly against anything that would hasten death. Any assisted suicide, euthanasia, anything like that is totally out of the picture. However, they are accepted. They will accept things, the stopping of things that would prolong life. For example, taking somebody off of a life support or a ventilator, something that is artificially keeping them alive. It is not uncommon to have Jewish patients in end-of-life care with DNRs or advanced directives. Typically, towards the end of life, the family can be very involved. They have a very strong focus on families and communities. Again, except for extreme circumstances, autopsies, cremation, embalming are all forbidden as they do desecrate the corpse. Upon death, they will close the eyes of the corpse. And generally, in the period following death, they may or may not have the family perform some rituals It is very common for them to leave people with the body constantly, so that it's never left alone. Sometimes they will cover the body with a shroud. More Orthodox cultures will even surround it with candles. They do try and have the bodies interred or buried within 24 hours. There is a picture of a shroud. Thank you very much for your time. And that is all of my presentation.